You said you watched the TED Talk, right?
Yeah.
Okay. AI parenting.
Yeah, AI
Okay.
parenting. I watched two of them. One of them was by a black woman from Zimbabwe. I kind of showed community, like she grew up in a village where they had to essentially grow up with a lot of sisters. They have the community, all of them raising them. They go out to fetch water, come to the cows, milk them, sing to them so that they produce milk, all that stuff. And then, I'm not very good with names, but a white lady came who's about 80 years old. She's actually studied like the parenting stuff from Homo sapiens, you know.
She studied parenting.
Yeah, like I think it was called anthropology or something like that.
Okay, I really don't know the name.
Yeah, no, I don't know the scientific stuff myself. But anyway, studying like parenting, dating way back from the Stone Age, all that kind of stuff and all that. And she was, and essentially they were talking about the AI in parenting, and she was saying how a child grows up. Like children are not stupid when they're young. They look at the people around them and see which ones respond to them better. And naturally, that's why they end up more or less imprinting on the mother, because the mother stays with them the most. They're the ones that feed them. They're the ones that take care of them. Now, you may think the mother role is not replaceable, but naturally it is replaceable if you think about it properly. If another person takes on that role of feeding the child and giving it more time than anybody else, the child will become more reliant on that person.
That's true.
Whether it is the mother, whether it is the father, whether it is the biological mother or the person who adopted them. The same result. Now, integrate AI into the same idea. Think a robot railing your child. When the child cries for milk, it comes along, gives them the bottle of milk. When the child wants a toy, it goes along, picks up the toy for the child, and the child begins to play. If the child is crying, it picks them up, starts rocking them, and the child stops crying. But I was thinking more into it, and I was like, what would happen essentially if the robots more or less took over teaching the children more? A robot that does not have emotions is just giving the child what it needs. A child is not learning the social cues of having to smile for somebody to actually, let me say, enjoy the conversation that they're having. For having to cry, that they show that they're upset. And a child essentially is missing all those emotional cues that are supposed to be there. And essentially grows up unable to emulate those cues because they never learned to pick them up from childhood. Now imagine that process keeps continuing over and over and over. I think 1,000 years. How long do you think it will take before the emotions become irrelevant because they're not being passed down? Just like how tradition is not passed down, it is forgotten. The emotional learning bits of the human, because it's starting from a young age, is forgotten over time. And then
wait, can we not do our video echo?
Yeah, and then I was asking myself what kind of possibilities would come about if society kept going in that direction. Now this goes more into the sci-fi realm of things, things that have not happened yet, but I like to believe sci-fi is like a gateway to what might happen in the future. So I was thinking, what if at some point humans are not doing anything for themselves? They hook themselves up to, let me say, things like, let me say, more advanced IVs and all that that gives them all the nutrients that they need. And then they have VR that has advanced enough that they can spend time in their own minds where they're able to play out their wildest imaginations. And everybody is in their house doing this. They don't have to move, they don't have to do anything. Their body just has to do its natural things of taking in the nutrients and then releasing them, like pissing and all that and shitting. So naturally, the whole of humanity has more or less collapsed. Now, if you look at humans like that, would you consider them humans? You from a perspective of a human who is now?
I'm thinking I would just consider them as evolved humans. That's what I'm thinking, because if you look back, but science tells us about human beings from like different ages. Like when we had the Homo erectus, the Homo I don't know if you got to learn about those things in school. You heard about those things, right?
Yeah.
So I think I don't know that it relates to the Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, and it's something I don't really understand. And when it comes to evolution or science, it's not something you need to believe. You need to understand. So I haven't taken time to understand the theory of evolution, but I believe that human beings have evolved from where we used to be. Or let me push it back to maybe the days of my mom or my dad. My dad is 70, so let's say back in his day growing up, things were really, really very different compared to today. Okay, let me give this simple example. Well, Diana, come. I believe that back in the day, our parents were not very emotional people. I don't know about the world in the West, like the Western world, but for Africa, I know that we're not so emotional, like talking about our mental health, how I'm feeling. Like let's say your mom is trying to talk to you back in the day, like let's say 1940 something or 1950 something, and you're like, God, I'm having a mental breakdown today. There was really nothing of such nature. I think that, like, back then, of course, emotions wasn't a thing, but today it's a thing right now. I don't know if you get my point.
I get your point.
Yeah, human beings are evolving, but that's going back to the Homo sapien example I was giving. While I said I didn't want to give so much examples with the Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, but in the theory, if I remember very well, it spoke about human beings like back in the day, how they used to, like, I think whether the Homo erectus, they were more like the monkeys, or let's say the ape or whatever, like crawling, and then later on they started walking with their feet. How back in the day they were eating wild Diana, come. How they were eating wild fruits and all of that, but then today we have stuff like McDonald's. There was really nothing of such stuff back then. We have overly processed food these days. You can easily sit down at home right now and order food. I can sit down right now, while we're even sitting here right now, we look at like people flying from one place to the other, the planes. There are a lot of things that are so different from what it used to be. We can sit down here and call our family from Africa. We can do video call with them. It feels like magic if you spoke to somebody back in the day. And then somebody back in the day, they looked at us right now, probably they would have even believed that it's impossible. It can never be done. Before the cars were invented, nobody would have believed it's possible to drive from here to maybe wherever, like anywhere close by Wales or wherever. I don't know if you get my point. Am I making any sense?
You're making sense.
Yeah, we are still humans, but we just look at ourselves as really evolved human beings. And what you are trying to talk about, this age of AI, I feel we've not even seen anything. And these things you're talking about, I think it's like, I cannot say it's impossible. In fact, I don't want to allow myself to like give myself any limit to think of what is going to be possible. I think that there are so many things that AI is going to do that we felt would never be possible. So I really think that even concerning like parents and children, I believe that of course a robot can mother a child, but of course the emotions and all of that will not be there. But come to think of it, even as we are in the world of today, there are some parents that are as good as robots.
Yes, I was actually also experimenting with that thought in my head. Because I was thinking initially, like, how would we even get to the point where robots have to take care of our children? So then I thought to the fact, in this day and age, we have the idea of two working parents. Both of them are going to work, and because of that, and both of them are focusing on their career, maybe their career, both of them are picking up, and they're really working on it. So they're thinking, okay, let's hire a nanny. And they pay to hire a nanny, somebody else to raise their child. Now imagine if you had the option of pressing a button and then a machine will take care of your child while you do your work.
Would you need a nanny? You won't need a nanny.
You will rely on that robot, and before you know it, that robot will take over the whole responsibility of taking care of your child, because you find it convenient. And you might even make yourself feel better by throwing some presents to the child, giving them whatever they need, because you feel like you're still doing your role as a parent, but all that emotional stuff is kind of taken out. And in your speaking of mental health and how they didn't have it in the past, like I told you in the TED Talk, the first one I watched was of a woman from Zimbabwe, and she was explaining, and they said something interesting in that TED Talk, and like the things we talk about mental health, like how to cure it, going on walks, being with family, keeping busy.
Hi.
Keeping busy.
Yeah.
All those things in Africa. By the time you wake up as a child, you have to go and fetch water. And then you have to come back, eat with your whole family, go out into the wilderness to garden with everyone, you're with nature. All these things that therapists are telling you to do. In Africa, people do them as a part of their life. So where will mental health come in from? Because a person is already living a mindful life of being surrounded by nature, being surrounded by people and communicating with them. So what brings about this mental health problem is the fact that humans are now detached from each other.
And I think it's also because we started like buying the idea of the Western world. I'm thinking so. I may be wrong. But if you look at the Western world, let's say use this place for example. We live here. We don't know who are our next door neighbors. We don't know the people who live around here. The man the other way just said hi, we're like hi, nothing extra. But you know, back in Africa, you know, most times we are probably in the next person's house, the community lifestyle. But here in the UK, for example, that community lifestyle, it's not so like, well, let's say it's not so common, except for few people who are very intentional. But it's not a very common thing that happens around. And you know, we as Africans, we had always done the community lifestyle kind of thing. But then I kind of think that when we started getting to know what it's like in the Western world, we started buying their ideas, buying their culture, different things that they were doing outside. I kind of feel that it came in and, will I say, it started spoiling some things in Africa. Back in the day in Africa, we did not have mothers who were saying they are going to work. They are facing their careers, going to work, and leaving the children probably at a daycare. I'm just trying to give an example. We had mothers who stayed at home, took care of the children. The dads went out, hunted and all of that, then brought it home. Children were nurtured by their mom. But now we live in this society where women want to have their career. That's one of the reasons why myself, I stepped down in the career, let's say the career line or whatever. I no longer want to be a career woman, but back then I wanted to be one. But one of the reasons why I don't want to be a career woman is because of Diana. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, that's the career I have chosen. To stay at home with my child and nurture my child. I was even watching something yesterday where Michelle Obama was talking, like doing a podcast, and she was talking. You know Michelle Obama, right?
I know Michelle Obama.
You know, you seem not to ever know people.
Yes.
Okay, so she was talking about how she was raised. Her mom always stayed at home, and the dad he was the one who was the career one, hustling and all of that to bring food. But the idea of their family was that the mom should be home, and somebody like the children, herself and her brother, they should always come back home to lunch, come back home to somebody welcoming them from school and all of that, instead of coming to an empty house. You just pick up the keys and help yourself in the kitchen and all of that. If you get to compare that with a household where the dad and the mom are out, I don't know if you get my point. I don't know if it really affects mental health, but I think in a way it does. I think so.
It is what we choose to go and pick up, or let me say, as a child, what you choose to teach you.
So, this is Franklin. Franklin is new to my channel, and I think whether we should open our YouTube channel where we can have chats, but I think this can work for now because I can't manage too much at the moment. So I think this can work for now, right?
It's just fine.
Yeah, so we can have this chat. So Franklin is my stepson, and Franklin is very interesting. I love spending time with Franklin because his thoughts are rare. He's a unique personality, and he's very brilliant and intelligent, right? Yeah, I kind of think you're a genius. So Franklin, thank you so much for being here. This is our first YouTube together. It's our first talk on YouTube. We're just freestyling. We don't need to be perfect. We just have to do what we are doing because this is definitely a regular thing. Most times he comes around and then we have chats from time to time. So if you'd like to keep up, make sure you subscribe so that each time we make a video, you're notified. I didn't introduce Diana, right? Diana, introduce yourself.
Where's that expansive vocabulary we developed?
Introduce yourself. There.
There's our introduction.